kind of colors how I see shit, right? So I just want to make this shit clear. I just want to make that clear. My life colors how I see certain things. And so usually when the children of these celebrities comes out and they say anything against their celebrity parent, I pay attention. I pay attention to those kids, and I am more apt to believe those kids and their experience when it comes to them coming out against their parents in a public way, right? For any of you who have been listening to me for any length of time, you guys know that my grandfather was blues singer Johnny Taylor, and my father was his son, Floyd Taylor, right? About 13 years ago, I publicly blasted my father on YouTube for his basically being a deadbeat father to me and my brothers and sisters, right? And that, people at the time were coming at me. Why are you bringing this up to us? This is family business. Why you pulling this out? This ain't none of our business. You should have kept you should have kept that to yourself. This, that, and the other, right? And then there was also a contingent of folks who would come at me and say, like, this is because you want something. You want some money or something. And it was odd. It was odd to me because those people were under the impression that Floyd Taylor had a shit ton of money, and he didn't. Floyd Taylor didn't have much when he passed. Trust me, I know. Right? And it wasn't money that I wanted from him. Much more than anything else, at the time of our falling out, was that I wanted a relationship with my siblings, whom at the time I barely knew. And I had two sisters I did not know at all. Hadn't seen them ever. Right? And so that was what our falling out was about. And I remember folks coming at me sideways, saying all sorts of crazy shit about my mom and all sorts of stuff, right? Because that was the parasocial relationship that people have with celebrity, is that they always took the side of the celebrity because the celebrity gave them something to remember them by some way, right? The art kind of gave them something to remember them by. So like, whether it be the music, whether it be the comedy, whether it be the movies and the roles that they took on, like you think about how people look at Bill Cosby. A lot of folks think that Bill Cosby raised them based upon his role as Dr. Huxtable on the Cosby Show. So many people will come at your neck for coming at the dude that they believe vicariously raised them through that TV show. So when you come out as a person who actually knows that dude, and you say something a little, that doesn't exactly jive with the public persona that this person has cultivated for themselves, their fans will be upset with you, right? And I get it. I get it when these children of these celebrities come out. Now, I've said this on the show before, on the Span Report before. I'll say this again here on the Miss Span Official. Floyd Taylor was nowhere near the star that Monique was, nowhere near the star, is, nowhere near the star that Brian McKnight is, nowhere near the star that Kurt Franklin is. But when these kids of these stars come out and say something, I'm saying to you, I'm paying attention to what these kids are saying. Because far too often, we dismiss the experience of these people, but the children of these people who have a much different relationship with that person that you idolize because of the art that they produced. And it was interesting that, to me, how so many people wanted Shalon to be more private in how he addressed what he had to address with his mom, right? Why are you saying something now? Why couldn't you handle this behind closed doors? Why are you putting all this out for all of us to hear, right? And it was ironic only because Monique has been airing out her her private grievances with a whole bunch of different folks. She's been airing these grievances out for the better part of a decade now, right? And some of us have been championing, like kind of being like championing her, like, yo, a cheerleader for her to say to, like, yo, man, the things that I'm going through in this industry, they've wronged me, and they need to make these things right. And she's galvanized a great number of people to cheer for her to say, yeah, man, they need to be making this shit right. That's wrong what they've been doing to Monique. Monique was out here saying that she wasn't being paid the amount of money she should have been getting paid a long time before Taraji P. Henson was saying this shit. And unfortunately for Monique, because so many people were not liking Monique at the time, were not receiving the message. When it came to Taraji P. Henson saying it, suddenly they got it. They were receiving the message. Now, that didn't mean that what Monique was saying was wrong. Maybe it just wasn't the right messenger, right? Because, again, some folks just did not like Monique when she was saying this shit. So we can't have it both ways, We can't have it both ways. Yeah, Monique, we're sorry that we didn't acknowledge these things that you were dealing with privately. Now we understand why you were bringing them public. But then her son comes out. He has an issue and there's a grievance that he has with her. And he's saying what he has to say to her publicly, and everybody wants to shut him up. There's no consistency in that. I like consistency. And two things can be true at the same time. Yes, Monique has been wronged in the entertainment industry. But yes, her son could also have some very real misgivings about his upbringing with her as his mother. And both of them have come to the public to air out those grievances. Now, I've talked about, I've been a fan of Monique, man. I like Monique's comedy. I've gone to a few of different shows of Monique here in Detroit. A friend of mine is being mentored by Monique. So, like, there's that connection there. But at the same time, as someone who has come out against a parent publicly and had fans of said parents come at me sideways because of the things that I said about this person that I actually knew and y'all just knew through the art, I pay attention to when these kids come out and say what they got to say about these parents. Because far too many people straight up dismiss them because they think that they just want something, right? Now, unironically enough, Monique and her husband, Sidney Hicks, came out and they responded to what Shalon Jackson had to say about, Monique's parenting and what have you. One of the things I thought was very interesting, though, was the fact that there was a lot of Sidney Hicks speaking in this video when the video was not about him. This was a video of a young man speaking about his misgivings, speaking about the misgivings he had with his mother about the way in which his mother raised him. And in the response video, we got a lot of Sidney Hicks and not Monique, which I thought was disappointing. Right? Because if you're going to address this publicly, if we're all going to be a part of the discussion, if we're going to address this publicly, then I needed Monique to be the one responding to her son, not her husband. Because, I mean, ultimately, like the real beef is between you and your son, not your husband and your son. Despite the fact that you've known Sidney since y'all were kids, and like, he called him Uncle Sid and everything else, that's all fine and good. But when you're dealing with an issue between a mother and her son, or a father and his son, or a parent and their child, step parent or not, hey man, this ain't about you. This ain't got nothing to do with you. It may have something to do with you. You might have some role in this. But my beef right now is with the person that helped bring me into the world. We need to have a conversation. We need to have a come to Jesus moment. And what we don't need is you justifying shit. I thought I like when I watched that, I'm like, this ain't it. This ain't it. He was speaking to his mom and about what his mom's actions. And here we get a video response and mostly Sydney Hicks talking, not Monique. I thought I was disappointed in that. Now, of course, the title of the show is No One Wins When the Family Feuds, and we don't, right? We don't have, I mean, like, I even when I did the thing that I did, I mean, and I'll say this, because there's a question that a lot of folks have, they have when these sorts of things happen. Why are these kids talking all this shit? Why are they coming out publicly? Why don't they keep this shit in house? Why they got to bring us into all this stuff? We ain't got to know all this, right? I'm gonna tell you exactly why kids of these celebrities come out. Because they feel like they don't have any other option. These kids come out because they know that this celebrity parent cares a lot about what the public thinks of them. Right? Think about this for a minute. These kids have been frustrated with their parents for a long time. Have had things that they're dealing with that they don't feel like their parents have dealt with in a very real way for a long time. So by the time one of these kids comes forward to say anything publicly, negatively against that parent, is because they're trying to get the attention of that parent in a very real way. You don't care about what I think about you, but you do care about what all these motherfucking strangers think about you. And so now I could tell these strangers this shit that you've been doing behind closed doors that they don't fucking know about. And now you really got to handle this. This is why they do it. It's why I did it. It's why I did it. Right? I was on a phone call with my father that night when I put that shit out on YouTube. And that nigga hung up in my face because he didn't want to hear what I had to say. Okay, fine. I'm going to put it out there in a way that you can't fucking ignore. And ultimately what came from that was I called him that night to get phone numbers to some sisters that I have that I'd never met, despite the fact that I was 30 years old, had never met either of my sisters. Guess what happened? As a result, some cousins reach out. One of my sister's moms reach out. Then another sister reaches out. Because they didn't know that I was looking for them, that I wanted to know them, that I wanted to have a relationship with them. They had no idea. Now, had I not done what I did, we probably would never have known each other at all, or much about each other at all. I wouldn't have known I had as many nephews and nieces that I got. Right? I just wouldn't have known that. I wouldn't have known that I had them somewhere in Illinois and somewhere in Wisconsin, and then I had some in Texas and stuff like that. I wouldn't have known any of this stuff. So when these kids come out and they talk about their parents publicly, I want people to understand that a lot of these kids, they don't want to do this shit, but it's like what do you call it? It's like a last resort effort to try to get to a result, to try to get their parent to move in a way that they think they need to move. Because unfortunately for a lot of celebrity, the bad publicity may force them to move in a way in which they wouldn't move normally. It's unfortunate that sometimes that bad publicity has to come from inside your house because you got a kid or a child that's unhappy with you because of the way you've treated them, right? So, two things being true at the same time. Monique has been aggrieved. Monique has had some bad things happen to her in the industry. Monique has had some bad things happen in her life that have probably shaped the way that she moves in this world right now, right? The other thing that could also be true, Monique might not have been as attentive as a mother as she probably should have been to this particular son. And this particular son has every right to express himself in a way in which he needs to, especially if, people are coming at him and asking him, why you ain't cool with your mama? Especially in the social media age, People come at folks all the time. Why are you not cool with this person? Did you ever fix it with your mom? And like, that's what I'm sure he's probably gotten inundated with that, especially after Club Shay Shay, with the millions of views that podcast is now generating on YouTube. I'm sure he's gotten a lot of those questions. And in a way to get around it or get in front of it or however, this was his way of expressing himself and saying, so look, I want to I want to like free my mother from having to go on podcasts and say this shit, knowing that it might not necessarily be true. Right? I do hope they are able to reconcile that. I do. I know. I remember when I did my shit with me and Floyd. There were people who would reach out to me, "Hey man, did you and your dad ever fix it?" I'm like, no, and it never happened. He's stubborn. He was stubborn, and to some degree, I was stubborn too. We never fixed it. But I do hope at some point that with Shalon Jackson and Monique, that they are able to fix it, that they are able to come together, that they are able to like mend those fences, and that when they do, it's a beautiful thing, right? And we will look back on this like, man, this is just a learning moment. But yeah, man, like as this was happening, it was just one of those things where having just some level of understanding of why this sort of thing kind of happens, I felt like I should probably kind of talk a little bit about it. So yeah, you got that going on. But yeah, man, I am about to get on up out of here. I got